Welcome to The Explainer. You ever have those days where you feel like you're just being pulled in a million different directions? Well, today we're diving into a text that offers a pretty interesting tool for navigating that chaos of modern family life: faith.
So the source material gets right to the heart of a challenge I think so many of us feel. That constant sensation of being stretched way too thin. Between work, family, and all our other commitments. It really poses a fundamental question for our time.
But it doesn't stop there. The text also brings up this growing anxiety among young people about the whole idea of family. And, taken together, these two challenges really set the stage for everything we're about to explore.
Okay, so first up, modern life's challenges. The text kicks things off by just acknowledging the very real, very tangible pressures we're all up against.
And what's interesting is how this is all framed. It's not about some kind of personal failing, but it's a result of the world we live in. I mean, look at this list. It's probably pretty familiar, right? Dual incomes are the norm, costs are going up, work is relentless. The pressures are absolutely real. So the big question is, what's the proposed foundation for a solution?
Well, that brings us to Section 2, which gets right to the heart of it. What is faith's core? The whole solution presented in the text centers on this one idea, faith, but it's defined in a way that might actually surprise you.
See, according to the text, faith isn't some kind of blind belief. It's actually something more concrete. It's a hope in principles that are true, even when we can't see the final outcome just yet. You could think of it like a confident expectation of a good result, based on a true principle, long before that result ever becomes visible.
And this is just a brilliant way to illustrate the concept. It uses this powerful metaphor of a seed. Faith starts out as this tiny little seed of belief that if you nourish it, if you give it some space, it actually starts to grow. It expands your soul and even enlightens your understanding.
And this is absolutely crucial. The source emphasizes that this kind of faith is the very thing that motivates us to act, especially when the results aren't guaranteed. It's exactly like a farmer planting a seed. They do the work based on the hope of a future harvest. I mean, without that faith, why would they even bother?
Which of course brings us to our next section, how to increase faith. So if faith really is like a seed, how do we actually make it grow? What's the process?
Well, the text lays out this really clear four-step process, and as you can see, it has nothing to do with passively waiting around. It's an active process. It starts with just a simple desire, then moves to experimenting by actually testing the idea out. From there, you seek knowledge through study and prayer, and then finally, you put it all into practice through action.
And this slide just lays it out so perfectly. It illustrates a central idea here. Faith requires action to back it up. The text actually quotes scripture saying, faith without works is dead. So over on the left, you've got hope alone, kind of like hoping for good health while totally ignoring health laws. But on the right, you've got hope in action, praying for help while also actively studying. It's all about planting the seed and then doing the work to nourish it. To really make this point tangible, the source tells this great little story about an illiterate man. He had this sincere, powerful desire to read the scriptures, but he had a pretty big obstacle in his way. He couldn't read. And this just perfectly illustrates that partnership we were talking about. He showed his faith by praying, and that opened a door. But then he had to walk through that door by demonstrating his faith through the hard work of actually studying. And boom, that's faith and works in perfect harmony.
So what's the payoff for all of this? What are the results of this act of faith? Well, in Section 4, we're going to look at faith's power and blessings, and these range from pretty dramatic historical events to really personal spiritual outcomes.
The text points to these huge, powerful scriptural stories. Noah building the ark, Moses parting the Red Sea, not just as ancient history, but as tangible examples of the sheer scale of what's possible when faith is combined with decisive action.
But, it's not just about these grand, world-changing events. The source also identifies some very personal blessings. As you can see from the chart, these can range from miracles and answered prayers to receiving spiritual gifts and the strength you need to navigate your own modern challenges, ultimately leading to a closer relationship with God.
And all of this brings us to our final section, building a family of faith. This is where the rubber really meets the road, where we connect everything we've talked about back to those initial challenges of modern life. So how can these principles be applied directly to our families today? Well, the source proposes creating what it calls a faith culture at home, and it's done through small, consistent habits. The whole idea is to make faith the family's natural operating system, not just some occasional activity.
And as you can see, this means making it the language you use, being the example yourself, and setting up a simple rhythm of spiritual habits.
And to address that anxiety among young people that we mentioned at the very beginning, the text advises this really crucial shift in approach. You can probably see the pattern here. Use testimony, not pressure. Explain truth, not just tradition. Offer support, not criticism. It's really all about replacing pressure with partnership and just acknowledging their very real fears about the future.
So the crucial point that the source leaves us with is this. These principles are not just about finding a better way to balance your schedule. They're about a much deeper calling. It completely reframes that initial problem of being too busy and turns it into a personal mission, asking how each and every one of us can become a source of faith and family and hope in our own corner of the world.